Advisors, formerly Silver Lion Student Loan Advisors. So, we were doing a forgiveness series. We're going to take a break from that today and we're going to speak about defaulted loans. It was just announced that on May 5th, loans that are in default will return to collections. So, let's talk about that. When we say defaulted loans, or what the government says defaulted loans, what does that mean? That means you have defaulted on the payment plan in which you agreed to repay your student loans. Plainly spoken, you haven't made a student loan payment in 270 consecutive days. Now, this first round will be people who are in default before the COVID pause, excuse me, or the CARES Act, which put student loans in forbearance due to COVID-19 first in March of 2020. There are millions and millions of borrowers who are in default before that. Once your loans are in default, and again, that's when you have not made a payment towards your federal student loans for 270 consecutive days or more. Your loans are no longer with the federal government. They're with the collection company who now owns them. You lose what are called your federal privileges. Your federal privileges means you're no longer able to get student loans. Excuse me. It also means if you're someone who receives an income tax return, you won't be able to. They'll offset your income tax return. I say offset, or rather use air quotes, because they'll confiscate the whole thing. Usually, usually they'll apply between $5 and $50 towards the interest of your loans. The rest they keep as a collection fee. Not only that, if you're someone who's been in default for quite a while, you're not in the first stage of default, the second stage of default, the third stage of default. You're someone who's actually in what's called garnishment, which is the final stage of default for student loans. Garnishment is an actual judgment against you in a court of law. The collection company is able to garnish 15% of any taxable income that you receive, whether it's employment income, unemployment income, Social Security, some investment income, any income that you receive, if it's taxed, they'll take 15% of it before you even receive your money for the foreseeable future. It's extremely difficult and extremely expensive to get out of garnishment. A lawyer would typically charge between $3,000 and $5,000 to do it, and that's here in Ohio. I can only imagine with some lawyers in the bigger markets on the coast, more specifically, would charge. We are able to help. We're not nearly as expensive as a lawyer would be, but it's in everyone's best interest to take care of defaulted loans before they fall into garnishment. Once your loans go into default, um, you have to deal with the collection company. They're only going to tell you about a rehabilitation program, which is a 9-month program in which you negotiate a fair and reasonable payment with the collection company that you will make for 9 consecutive months. Once you're able to do that, your loans will return to good standing. Then you'll be able to find a repayment plan that fits your needs. But up until after the fifth month, the collection company is able to resell that debt. So you may have made your first payment, your second payment, your third, fourth, even fifth payment towards your rehabilitation program, all in good faith. You go to make that sixth payment and your loans are no longer there. Not only do you have to find where they are, the next collection company or whomever they sold it to, but you usually have to begin your rehabilitation program. Not usually, you have to begin your rehabilitation program all over from day one. None of that time spent in default can be converted to qualified time towards any forgiveness program. Your loans are not eligible for a forgiveness program while they're in default. Not only that, but the collection company is charging you 23% interest, accruing daily. 18% is compounded every day. So the interest they're charging you while your loans are in default, excuse me if I said 23, 24% interest, 18% compounded every day. There is a simpler way to get loans back in good standing, other than a rehabilitation program. Everyone and everyone's loan type doesn't qualify for it. If you're someone who thinks your loans may be in default or you know that they are, there'll be a link in the description below to get your loans back in good standing. When we say back in good standing, that means they're no longer in default. Um, they're no longer with a collection company. They have been returned to the Department of Education and whomever your servicer is. Now we can look at finding a repayment plan that not only fits your needs, but also your budget. There's no point of having a payment plan, even with the promise of forgiveness, if your monthly payments are unaffordable. Um, so we'll help get your loans out of default, get you on a payment plan that fits both your needs and your budget. Excuse me, and hopefully get you on a road to student loan forgiveness. You do not want to be in default for any significant amount of time because that threat of garnishment, which is the final stage of default, is always present. And like I said, it's extremely difficult and extremely expensive to get loans out of garnishment. Even us, as someone who does this every day, um, doing garnishments is really irritating dealing with collection companies. You want to catch them before that happens. So beginning May 5th, anyone who loans were in default before March of 2020, if you haven't done anything about it since then, your loans will return to collections. They're going to report the defaulted loans to your credit report. You can expect your credit to drop, and you're one stage closer to having your wages garnished. Don't let this be you. Join us next time for our Thrive Student Loan Advisor series. We'll return to student loan forgiveness programs unless something in the news dictates we make a video concerning that. Don't let yourself be stuck in default any longer than you need to. Thanks, and we'll speak to you soon.